G'day and welcome back to Behind the Crime Scene. I'm your host, and if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications. We dive deep into the cases that matter, bringing you analysis you won't find anywhere else. Today, we're back on the Dezi Freeman case, and bloody hell, there's some developments here that'll make your head spin. The more I dig into this, the more questions I've got about how this whole thing's being handled. Now, I've been following this story since day one, and what we're seeing unfold is absolutely mental. The resources, the tactics, the timeline. It's all raising some serious questions about what's really going on. Right, so we're 3 weeks deep into this search now, and the Daily Mail's come out with some bloody interesting stuff that's worth having a proper look at. This is coming from their senior reporter, Bray, who's been covering this case from the start. And let me tell you, she's been doing some serious investigative work that's making the official police channels look a bit ordinary, if I'm being honest. Now, according to Bray's reporting and the Daily Mail's investigation, the cops are spending about $1 million a day on this search, so we're talking 20 million already, mate. 20 million. Can you imagine? Just to put that in perspective for you, that's more than some entire countries spend on their defense for a whole year. We're talking countries like Fiji, which spends around 18 million annually on defense, or Malta at about 15 million. Hell, even some Pacific Island nations like Palau have total defense budgets under 10 million. This isn't just some number they've pulled out of thin air either. This is based on the unprecedented resources being deployed. Australian Defence Force, helicopters, drones, tactical teams, even New Zealand specialists flown in specifically for this operation. Now here's what's got me scratching my head. Apparently, the journos worked out Freeman's likely escape route down the river before the police did. According to Bray's investigation, this river runs right past his bus, where he was living at the Wanangata property, perfect cover if you know the country like he does. Within bloody hours of the Daily Mail publishing this theory, suddenly you've got choppers, drones, the whole 9 yards scouring that exact spot. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Are we seriously seeing a situation where the media's doing better detective work than our law enforcement? Now, there's a few ways to look at this. Either it's genuinely embarrassing for the cops. I mean, we're talking about a river that's literally right there, visible from the property. Or there's something more strategic going on here. Maybe the police already knew about this route, but were keeping it quiet for operational reasons. Maybe they were watching to see who else might use that information. Or maybe, and this is what concerns me, they genuinely missed something that obvious for 3 weeks while burning through $1 million a day. The other possibility is that this is intentional media management. Think about it. If you're law enforcement and you want to flush someone out, or get the public more engaged in the search, having a credible news outlet discover new leads keeps the story alive and the pressure on. It's happened before in major cases. But here's what really gets me. If a senior reporter can figure out an escape route by looking at satellite imagery and talking to locals, what does that say about the intelligence gathering that's supposedly driving this $20 million operation? But let's get into the meat of why Freeman allegedly wouldn't open that door when the police rocked up. According to this reporting, it wasn't just him being a stubborn bastard or hating authority, though he clearly had issues there. The claim is he'd been manufacturing homemade firearms after he'd already lost his license. Now that's a whole different kettle of fish. See, here's the timeline that matters. Freeman's gun license was stripped from him before any of this kicked off. This was after he'd been posting these rants online, having a go at police and authority figures, making what sounds like pretty serious threats. So he was already banned from having any firearms, legally speaking. But instead of backing down, this bloke allegedly went underground. We're talking about using online blueprints, getting black market parts, building weapons in secret. That's not someone having a bad day. That's deliberate escalation, mate. Now, I've looked into Australian firearms law, and it's no joke. Just having the blueprints for homemade weapons can get you 14 years in some states. Actually building the bloody things? You're looking at potentially decades behind bars. These aren't slap-on-the-wrist penalties. They're designed specifically to stop people doing exactly what Freeman's accused of. And here's the kicker. Freeman apparently told people he knew the law better than anyone else. If that's true, he would have known exactly what he was facing. This wasn't ignorance or some spur-of-the-moment decision. This was someone making calculated choices, knowing full well what the consequences would be if he got caught. Here's something that really shifts the narrative. New details about what happened to Freeman's family immediately after the incident. Initially, there were reports suggesting they were taken hostage or held against their will. But according to this investigation, the family actually left together on foot, which would have made it nearly impossible for police to get a clear shot at Freeman during his escape. Now, this complicates things tactically, if you think about it. Freeman's wife Marley and their 2 young children being present would have significantly limited police response options. While tactical teams aren't completely neutralized by civilians being present, they have protocols for these situations. It certainly makes any immediate action much more complex and risky. Whether Freeman planned this or it happened instinctively, having his family there during the escape created a much more complicated situation for law enforcement. The family was then reportedly picked up by Freeman's eldest son, that's Koa, who allegedly got in his car, met them at a roadside location on a nearby property, and took his mum and younger siblings to safety. Think about that coordination for a second. In the middle of this chaos, there's an emergency SOS call made, a pickup arranged, and a successful extraction. That's not panic behaviour, that's organised. This means police were initially searching for a family of 4 when they should have been tracking just one person. That's a significant tactical error that gave Freeman potentially hours or even days of additional head start. But here's what's really interesting. According to Bray's reporting, it took the police some time later to even realise they weren't looking for a group anymore. Now, I've got questions about this. How does it take hours to figure out you're tracking the wrong number of people? Where was the intelligence? Where was the coordination between ground units and command? Because while the police were setting up a perimeter expecting to contain a family group, Freeman was already potentially kilometres away, travelling light, travelling fast, and travelling alone under cover of darkness. And here's another angle. Freeman's son Koa stepping in to extract the family. That shows there's a support network here, people willing to help even in a crisis situation. It also suggests there was some level of family planning or at least understanding about what to do if things went sideways. Let's be honest about the scope of this search. We're talking about someone who, travelling on foot under cover of darkness, could theoretically reach the New South Wales border in about 30 hours. That opens up a search area that's absolutely massive. The profile being painted is of someone who avoids cities, doesn't like cold weather, and would stick to what he knows: remote bushland and farming communities. The suggestion is he'd shelter in hay barns or outbuildings, not needing modern comforts like internet or regular meals. But here's the thing. After 3 weeks, with all this manpower and technology, there are apparently still no solid leads. The same areas are being searched repeatedly, the same contacts approached, the same information recycled. Now, I want you to think about this critically. We're seeing unprecedented resources deployed: Australian Defence Force, helicopters, drones, even New Zealand experts brought in. The tourism industry in the area is taking a massive hit, with local businesses fearing long-term economic damage. The question has to be asked: is this response proportional and effective? When you're spending $1 million a day for 3 weeks with no concrete results, at what point do you reassess the strategy? Some are suggesting police might be close to scaling back operations. With estimates of the final cost reaching $20 to $30 million, there has to be a conversation about resource allocation and alternative approaches. Look, regardless of where you stand on Freeman's actions or motivations, this case raises serious questions about how these situations are handled. The initial intelligence gathering, the resource deployment, the communication strategies, there are lessons to be learned here. The reality is, if someone with bushcraft knowledge and survival skills wants to disappear into the Australian wilderness, it's an enormous challenge for law enforcement, regardless of the resources thrown at it. What we're seeing is a clash between traditional policing methods and someone who's essentially gone off-grid in terrain that heavily favours the individual over the institution. So that's where we're at with this case, folks. What do you reckon about how this whole thing's being handled? Are the cops throwing good money after bad, or is there more to this than meets the eye? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that bell so you don't miss our coverage as this story develops. We'll keep digging where others won't, bringing you the analysis you deserve. Catch you next time, and remember, always question what you're being told.